All right, and we're live. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this session. My name's Sean. Thanks very much for joining us. It's amazing to see so many people coming on live. We put this session together because we want to do a bit to support everyone by promoting well-reasoned advice and resources that can really help you get on top of your money. So I'm going to introduce Jason and Fanny properly in just a minute. But we know them both through other projects that we've been doing, and they really bring a wealth of knowledge that complements a lot of the principles that we try and promote with the Money Dashboard app, which is obviously all about helping people track their spending, set budgets, and plan for the future. So we're going to be continuing to bring together a lot of resources over the coming days and weeks. So give us a shout if there's anything in particular that you want help with. We've launched an open community now at community.moneydashboard.com, where you can go and leave your questions and chat to other people. So let me just introduce then properly Jason and Fanny. So Jason Butler is a chartered financial planner and a fellow of the Chartered Institute for Securities and Investment. He's also a columnist for the Financial Times and the head of financial education at Salary Finance. Fanny is a certified money coach, author, and motivational speaker who is doing a lot of work to change the way that we think about money. So they're going to cover a range of topics today, going on topics like developing mental resilience to cope with financial stress, a little bit of a framework for how you can think about your financial position, and some actions, tips, and ideas that you can employ that might help you maximize your financial well-being. So just before I hand over, some house rules. Please bear in mind that while Jason and Fanny are happy to share their opinions and views to help you become more informed, they can't give personal financial advice, and neither Jason, Fanny, or Money Dashboard can take responsibility for any action you might take or not take as a result of this webcast. So please do consult a regulated financial advisor if you need personal help. We're going to do our best to avoid any technical issues, but as it's a live event and we're all on home Wi-Fi, they may happen. Just do bear with us if anything goes wrong, and we'll try and get things sorted. And then just lastly, if you have any questions, please use the Ask a Question functionality just at the bottom of your screen, and Jason and Fanny will do their best to get to them when they can. All right, over to you, Jason and Fanny.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Sean. And yes, I'm Jason Butler, as you know, and this is my partner in crime.
Hello, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
That's great. Look, first of all, a big shout out to Money Dashboard for making the event happen. Fanny and I are very, very keen to do whatever we can to help people, get through the coronavirus situation. And we know that these are scary times. We know that money is a scary thing for many people at the best of times. And so, although we don't know all the answers, do we, Fanny? We've seen quite a lot in life. We've seen all sorts of stuff, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, redundancy has been one of mine, and just losing pretty much everything overnight. I remember power cuts back in the 70s. All sorts of crises that we have in our lives, and we've got through them, and we're still here.
Yeah, and I've seen 3 stock market crashes. I had a property crash. I lost 16,000 on my first house, negative equity. I bought a house and then didn't have any income. I had £28,000 of debt when I was 24. I have seen all of this stuff. Yeah. So whilst it's frightening, Fanny and I both are no strangers to adversity. No. And that's the reality. Is what we've developed is a pretty thick skin from failure and adversity. And if there's one message we want you to take away, it's that we will get through this. You will get through this, because we have to get through this, and history tells us we will. That's not to say these coming weeks and months aren't going to be tricky, frightening, and sad for many people, but most of us are going to come through this stronger, better together, aren't we?
We are.
Yeah. Now, look, just a couple of things. We really do invite you to put questions, and we're going to answer as many as we can, but whilst we will answer factual questions, anything that you could just find from Googling, that's fine. We will answer those questions if we've got time, but we're really keen to hear your subjective questions, the questions where it's about judgment and weighing stuff up or not sure how to go, and it's not clear cut. That's the sort of questions that we really love to answer. So please do think of those, as many. There's no silly questions, are there, Fanny?
There are absolutely no silly questions. What's interesting about when we find ourselves in crisis or trauma is there are all sorts of emotions that come up within us that we don't expect. And sometimes we sort of forget things that we know, or all of a sudden questions come up about subjects that we think, we never ever would have had to have thought about that. So we're not taught about money at school. We don't ever have any official education around it. It's really good to express and ask. And as a coach, for me, really any question is valid. And just to feel free to actually ask something, and don't feel silly if it's something that somebody's you think that you should have already known, because it just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, no silly questions. That's
no silly questions.
Okay, before we get into answering any questions, let's just talk about this whole thing of mental resilience, and specifically in relation to money, because I want to really just sort of set the scene there. We know that if you're feeling worried, anxious, stressed, even angry, it's going to cloud your decision making. It's going to really hold you back from making decisions. And here's the thing, let's just get this elephant in the room out. That in a situation like we're going through now, where there is a crisis that you couldn't foresee, no one could have foreseen this, that your previous decisions and the weaknesses in your current situation will greatly come back to haunt you, as it were. So in other words, if you aren't in a super secure position through no fault of your own, your previous decisions are now coming back to you, and you may start having feelings of guilt, shame, embarrassment, even anger, as I say, because of those past decisions. But here's the thing, you've got to let the past go. Yes, learn from it, but you can't be carrying that baggage with you. It is what it is. You have to start from where you are now. And that's really the important thing, is that we don't judge anyone. There's no question you can ask us that we would think, oh, well, that person's silly. We've all made mistakes. And if I look back when I was in my 20s, I'm embarrassed to even think about those. Fanny, I know that you were slightly more perfect than me.
I don't know about that.
Is that a fair point, though?
It's a really, really fair point. And when you say fear, anger, guilt, and shame, they are the emotions that come up over and over and over again. Look, money is still a taboo subject. Apparently, we would still rather talk about sex and death than talk about money. Money is now being thrown into the forefront of so many people, of all of our lives, to be honest, because it's all about finances and jobs. And the point is that one of the things I work with people is their money story, about what kind of money scripts, messages, beliefs that they've had instilled in them from childhood that come up and bite them in the bottom when it comes to adulthood. And these are going to be thrown out into the arena way more than they would normally.
Yeah.
So finding the truth and finding some clarity through that is really important. Just very quickly, I use a system called money types. It's a fantastic way to try and understand our behavior without getting too subjective and, getting into it. And those 8 money types are these. They're the innocent, the victim, the warrior, the martyr, the fool, the creator artist, the tyrant, and the magician. And they're fictional characters that all live in us, all of them. And it depends what situation we're in as to which one comes out to play, which one takes the leading role in our lives. And when you talk about those different emotions, fear, anger, guilt, and shame, all of those can be linked to the different characters. So for instance, if you're feeling angry about things, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen? Why did I do that? It could very well be that your victim is coming out to play. When you think about the decisions that you've made in the past that maybe you wouldn't have made, you're thinking, God, I was so foolish when that happened, was when the fool comes out to play. You are never a fool. You are never a victim. The money types are where you are, not who you are. So it's really a way to separate your behavior, pin it to the money types, and you can then move through that, because it's all about gaining clarity.
I agree. And I think you're going to make available the free test, aren't you, to see people see which archetype they are. Because here's the thing, there's 2 points I would make to that. And I'm very familiar with those archetypes, and I agree with it. Is that we are too hard on ourselves. We beat ourselves up.
Definitely. Okay, so I'm not sure if Jason has...
These stories you're telling yourself are just stories. There's stuff from baggage from upbringing and stories that you heard. They're just stories. And the same as when you come to spend money or how you relate to the current situation. It's just stories. It's not the absolute truth. It's your version of the truth based on what you've learned. And one of the things I know from my own upbringing is both my parents they couldn't even run a bath, let alone their finances. Pleasant enough people, but and it's in some of my books. And my mum is such great material. I mean, my mum would go and buy a hat for a wedding that she had to attend, and come back with what was then, in today's money, about a £2,500 cooker. On finance for 5 years. I mean, there's just no sense in that, and that was because she felt that she'd only had junk that her then ex-husband, my dad, had only ever got stuff from the dump, the recycle centre or whatever, would never let her have new stuff, and she felt not loved. And so a lot of our decisions are really linked to emotions. And what COVID is doing is it's heightening that sense of emotional rawness. And that's what we don't want to say don't accept those emotions. We want to say try and understand them and trying to sort of get them in control. It's a bit like the monkey mind, isn't it? Getting it
Definitely.
in, always going to be there, but just try and avoid it sabotaging you. So I'm just trying to think now here. Do you want to just give an idea of how you get people to calm their mental state down when it comes around to money and those stories before I go into the next bit?
Certainly. So, let's just take a real example. So I'm talking to somebody from my group and they're saying, oh, Fanny, I'm just feeling so stressed. I'm so anxious. I don't know what's going to happen. I haven't got any money. All my income has just stopped. I've got 2 kids here and I can't work because the children are in here. I just don't know what to do. My husband's, he's probably going to be laid off, certainly. And everything is just gone crazy. And my whole thought is consumed with this. So the first thing that I would say to her is like, well, let's try and find a piece of calm just for one moment. Let's just stop and shut our eyes and find a piece of calm. And let's try and find what the truth is. So when you say you don't know what's going to happen, that's absolutely true, because we can't control what's going to happen. But what can you control? What can you see in your reality right now? What's your bank balance? Have you made a budget? All those good. We're going to talk about practical things at the moment in a minute, but it's like looking at the real reality, the clarity, and finding that piece of calm, because you can't move forward from that. And if we're talking about the money types again, that would be the innocent, who is like worried about the future, wants somebody to come along and just rescue it, doesn't know what to do, doesn't have the knowledge, and it just goes into a place of panic.
Well, let's now just touch on this, because everyone will have their own kind of feelings and their own history and their own stories. Let's just let's get some classic lines out that we know people tell themselves. So my classic one that I used to tell myself when I was younger was, "I'm no good with numbers." Okay, let's just explain that. I was in the top set for maths when I went to my tough comprehensive. Okay, where if their whole objective was you to not fight, not to get expelled, and not to go to prison.
Right.
There was not a high expectation. And I was moved gradually down in the maths set from the top down to where it was. They were so tough, the kids in this group that I ended up with. They were in a separate wing of the sort of last chance saloon. These are the really tough kids who had behavioural problems. And I was with them. So you can imagine the story I told myself, that I was no good with numbers. Now, the point was I wasn't naturally good with numbers, right? So if you said to me, let's do long multiplication, it was like, oh, no. If someone said to me, let's write a story, yeah. But here's the thing. It took me until I was 21 years of age doing night school to get that programming out of my head.
Yeah.
So, yes, I didn't learn the way most people did, but it wasn't I was not confident with numbers and wasn't capable. I maybe was never going to be an actuary, right?
Yeah.
Never going to be a mathematician. But I now could fight a spreadsheet to the floor. I can do had the ability to learn that. So what other classic self-depreciating sort of self-deprecating statements do people say?
Well, I think obviously you've got can't afford it, but I think one that's quite prevalent now is I don't have any money.
Yeah.
Right. So I haven't got any money. So what does that actually mean? So you've got a roof over your head. You've got clothes in the wardrobe. You've got a mobile phone on contract. You've got a car on the drive. You've got food in the cupboard. I don't have any money. But we tell ourselves this, I don't have any money. But actually, it's about finding that truth. Actually, do you have some money? Well, yes, actually, I do. And that's a typical one that is very relevant now.
Give you an example. I've got 2 laptops there and 3 old mobile phones. Laptop to Direct and Mazumba are 2 companies that will buy your old kit. They may only give you 20, 30 pounds. But if you've got 4 pieces of kit, that's 120, 150 pounds of cash that they will buy, including delivery. Yeah. So there's always money. There's always money if you think in abundance. And I just want to touch on this thing of fixed versus growth mindset.
Yeah.
Now, Carol Dweck is the world famous expert on this, and she wrote the seminal book called Mindset, okay, how basically you can achieve anything and greatness in life. And I refer to her work all the time. And what she says is there are 2 types of mindset: fixed mindset, growth mindset. And it's important for you to understand what these really differences are. Fixed mindset sees mistakes and obstacles as like a fait accompli. That's it. I can't go forward. That's it. This is it. I'm the victim. Nothing can happen. And that can come from both genetically, it can come from your upbringing, or a mixture of the 2. But a growth mindset says, there's an obstacle, or there's a setback, or there's a problem, or I didn't do it right this first time, or I made a mistake, they say, okay, I haven't learned at the moment. So if you are struggling and you feel perhaps you should have done better with your money, or you can't see the way out at the moment with the current situation, say, okay, this is sent to test to teach me something. What can I learn from this? What can others teach me? So that growth mindset has been proven beyond doubt. If you can cultivate and develop that growth mindset, not that, wow, there's no problem. There is a problem. Okay, Jim Snaith
absolutely
was a prisoner of war in the Vietnam War for 3.5 years, and he said, look, I had absolute faith I was going to get through this, but I was realistic about what my current situation was. So realistic was I had to deal with what was right in front of me that day.
And we're so resilient. We're so resourceful as human beings. I look at a situation like, let's say you've just been dumped on a desert island, you've been washed up on the shore. I mean, you can sit there for a week getting sunburned and hungry, but sooner or later you're going to find a stick, which is you're going to think, oh, maybe I could catch a fish. Then you're going to think about building a shelter, and you will start to find those resources. And I think that's the most important thing now, is to start being resourceful. Again, the people in my group who were totally panicked about it a week and a half ago have actually come into the group this morning and said, oh my goodness, I've got to the end of March and I've never had so much money in the end of my bank account. And they're starting to realize that actually they've gone through the last week and a half without hardly spending anything, and it's not actually been awful.
Yep, I had, believe it or not, £300 left in my fun account. Right, I start with 900. This is just for rubbish, coffees, teas, whatever. Anything. I don't have to speak to anyone. You will have your own number for fun, but it's in a separate account with Monzo. And I haven't really spent any money, but I did pay for a new electricity cable on a building site next to my house, and that was £130. And I actually had the £300 there in the fun account, which I hadn't used because it hadn't gone anywhere. And suddenly, but I'm still £180 ahead. So that's a great thing. So let's move on to this framework idea then.
Yeah.
So let's think that we can see that we're going to get through this. This is set to teach us something. The stories that we tell ourselves are just stories. Okay. Yeah. We're all in a similar boat. Someone somewhere has gone through this before, and you can do it. Okay. So we talked about these 4 types of current reality. So let's talk about that, shall we?
Yeah. So I've worked it out that I think there's sort of 4 different instances, and you could be in one of these 4. So let's say, for instance, you're still working, so you've got an income coming in, and you've also got some savings.
Like a cash buffer that you can draw.
A cash buffer, yeah. So you've got a cash buffer. So the idea would be, for the income that you've got, you want a budget. You want to be able to have all of your money mapped out, giving every single pound a purpose. And you want to really be thinking, then, if I've got some savings as well, should I lose that income? How long will those savings last? So it's about measuring things. It's about working out and knowing how much money you have. But we would also ask for somebody in that position is, please, can you keep spending? Not unmeasured, not in an unmeasured way, but in a measured way, because you're in that position that you're part of the cog that is keeping the economy going.
And money needs to move, right?
Money needs to move. It's called currency, right? It moves. Yeah, it's an energy, it moves. Yep. So that's the first one. The second state would be, you have income coming in, but you don't have any savings. You haven't actually got a cash buffer at the moment. So now is the opportunity for you to really, really look after every single penny that you get in and try and build a cash buffer, because we don't know how long this is going to carry on. So start building some savings right now. Plan for the worst. Let's say your income has gone, but you've got these savings for a rainy day. Today is the rainy day. Because I've spoken to quite a few people who've gone, well, I've got these savings, but I don't want to spend them. I said, well, what were they for? Well, they were for a rainy day.
It's raining, right?
It's now raining.
Get the umbrella out. Yeah.
Exactly. But same rules apply. Get the budget out and work out exactly what your critical living expenses are. And your critical living expenses are literally what you need to carry you through. The rent, the mortgage.
Delivery, not a Domino's delivery. That's
no. And can you trim your £60 a month mobile phone contract down to a £39 one, or all those kind of things.
Hey, Fanny, I've just moved my gift gaff down from what was £12 to £6. So it sounds silly, but it's the principle, isn't it? Trimming that £6. It's not that I can't afford it. It's just a principle.
Well, yeah, it's the benefit of compound. You can only ever start with £1.
Yeah, sure.
Right, can't start from anywhere else. So no income but savings. Measure those savings. See how long they're going to last, and start to be resourceful. Think about creating some opportunities. use time you have for personal development.
Do you need to increase those savings? Do you need to get them higher?
Exactly. All that kind of stuff. Where are they? Can you increase it, etc.? Just start to be resourceful and ask the questions that you need to go, well, hang on a minute, how can I make more from this?
Yep.
And if you don't know the answers, don't be frightened to ask somebody else, like us or like a friend or whatever.
Forum or whatever. And then we've got the final group, which is the most vulnerable group, right?
And then we've got the final group, which is the most vulnerable group, which is, which is tricky. And I have to say, hand on my heart, there is no magic wand, and it's about trying to establish what is available from the government. Thinking about the resources that you do actually have. Can you sell? Can you raise any cash? Can you ask a family member if you could borrow some money?
In fact, on that very point, there is a question. Sorry to cut in there, Fanny.
Yeah.
There's a great question. And I think the question's along the lines of, I'm trying to read it, says that what's the best way to get debt? Well, first of all, try and avoid debt, right? If you can. This is like the nuclear option for us. We're very passionately anti-debt, because debt holds you back and it stops you building wealth, right? But if you've got no other option, then the first thing is to speak to family. Right? Speak to family and friends. Now, here's where it goes wrong when you speak to family and friends about borrowing money. It goes wrong when you don't treat them like they're a bank or building society, when you treat them like it's actually a gift, okay? So, give you an example. A family member approached me some years ago and asked me to lend money because they knew I had more than them. And I was happy to help. But what swung it for me was that they said, and of course, I'm happy to repay it over a 12-month period. And I'm happy to pay you a bit more than you're getting in the building society or whatever it is. I'm happy to pay interest, but this will really, really help me. And the way that we evidenced that was just a simple one-page loan agreement.
Yeah.
Not even off the internet. We just said, this is the borrower, this is the lender, these are the terms. I will lend this, you will do that. And if you are prepared to be businesslike with your family or friends about borrowing money and have a formal agreement and a loan repayment schedule, even if it's deferred for 3 months, then people are more amenable in your family network, because I'd rather be getting 5% interest off of a family member than the 1% I'm getting in the savings account. And they would rather pay 5% than say 20%. And onerous terms or from someone else.
It's really interesting the way that you've described that, because you're talking from total warrior magician, which are the real positive money types. Quite a lot of people who are possibly on this call, etc., might not be coming up from that position and might be coming from an innocent sort of martyr sort of type, looking after everybody else before themselves, or coming from a lack of knowledge. And the thing is, one thing I would like to say is it's perfectly okay to turn into a money geek. It really is perfectly okay to actually start gaining some confidence about money, talking about money. And whereas might feel very uncomfortable to you right now, once you start talking about it, it sure will become a lot more comfortable. So be brave with that.
A great book for talking about money is called Open Up, The Power of Talking About Money by Alex Holder. She's a Guardian journalist. Absolutely beautifully written book. She interviewed about 50, 60 different people and everything. If you're struggling to talk to your partner about relationships, your people in your relationships about money, because the problem with money is it's so imbued in our identity. I've got a new book coming out later in the year, which I'm still drafting now, and obviously this current situation's given me a bit more time, which is great because my publisher will be pleased. But and in that I call it the money miracle. I mean, it's really because habits, that what you do with your money on a daily basis and how you react to outside stimuli and marketing and what other people are saying determines your outcome. But what drives the habits is your identity. And money is very much linked to, so if we think someone's got money, somehow they're more worthy, or if someone's poor, they're stupid, but they're not. You can be really worthy and really smart and not have a great deal of money for whatever reason. I mean, you may have a business go bang. You could have had someone embezzle you. You could have had an abusive relationship that fell apart and it cost you a fortune. There's lots of reasons why people are in the situation they're in, and we mustn't judge people for it is what it is. Now, obviously, there are people who have got addictions and are using spending or gambling or buying drugs or alcohol, whatever it is. We're all filling voids to some degree, and that is what it is. We're just human, okay? We're imperfect. Okay. So I think that's the key bit there. What's some other questions we've got here? We've got one here about I'm just having a look here. What one do you want to take there, Fanny? There's so many. Shall I do with the self-build one? There's one here about self-build.
Yeah, do that.
Okay, we've got someone here who is halfway through doing a building project. Now, I'm not sure if it is a self-build, or I'm not sure if they're going to live in it, or if it's just an investment that they're doing. They said they're halfway through. Should they continue with the job? Well, the answer is, and I'm happy to see what you think on this, Fanny, I think it depends, right?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on, is it a home that you're building to live in and you need to have it done by a certain time? Okay. In which case, yeah. Will the current situation affect your ability to earn a living or support your lifestyle? And might you need the cash that you've got put aside? Okay. If you've got cash put aside, might you need that for your short-term emergency fund? In which case, finishing the building, it might have to be put on pause for a bit. So as a general rule of thumb, if you're very secure and you've got a good income, or you don't need an income, or you're on a pension or whatever, and you've got plenty of cash, if you can get a builder to finish it and they can do it safely in a way that doesn't put anyone at risk, then you want to try and finish it as much as you can and certainly get it watertight. But if there's any vulnerability in your situation, right, there's no shame in putting a project on pause until you see how this stuff works out and then picking it up down the line. So, yeah, and obviously there are things like community infrastructure levy if you're building a house that's not a self-build, where your clock is ticking from the moment you start doing the build to when you have to pay the tax for building the house.
Yeah, and penalty charges, etc.
I
think with all of these types of questions, one of the tools that I use with my coaching clients is I use something called the decisive hand, where you just sit down when you've got a conundrum like this, or you've got a puzzle that you just can't seem to work out if I did that, if I did this, I did that. We want to bring our magician in and be able to make a decision and then move back from the outcome because we're happy with what we've done. So get a piece of paper and write down all the different options, every single possible option, and then work each one through and start crossing them out as they don't seem useful to you, or they don't seem, no, I won't do that because that's going to happen to that, and just try to come to a conclusion by sensibly going through each of the options. I know that sounds really silly and really obvious and maybe even patronizing to some, but sometimes we get so caught up in our own headspace, and it is maybe just sit down with a pal and go through all the different options. And
another thing is an obstacle or a challenge can actually be an opportunity and a growth thing.
Definitely.
Right? Now, I want to touch on the stock market. We've got several questions here on stock market investments. Okay, they're along the lines of, I'm invested in the stocks and shares. I should just drop through the floor, or it's disheartening. Where should I come out? So I'll let you answer in a minute, Fanny. I just want to take people through what I used to do when I was a financial advisor for 25 years, and I dealt with mainly very, very wealthy families who came in with millions. Okay, and some of them had sold their business and had to commit the money. And this is what I did with all of them. I would say, okay, I want to take you through I want to take you back to the end of 1972, right? I was 3. Fanny was probably not born. Always gets me brownie points. And 1972, let's pretend just at Christmas you invested, let's just say you invested £10,000. Right? Let's just take that number. That's everyone can sort of get their head around that. The end of 1973, there was a whole host of things that happened in the 70s, but mainly an oil shock and the war in the Middle East. By the end of 1973, your £10,000 was worth about £7,300 if you'd invested it 100% in the UK stock market. And let's just forget charges for a minute and tax. Right? How are you feeling? That is not nice, okay? Not so bad as it's happened recently, but where we are with the stock market crash, it came down in the last month. It came down 40% if you were 100% in shares, and it's come back about 12, 13% so far. So we're down about the same as 1973, right? You held on another year, at the end of 1974, your £10,000 now worth just over £3,300. I mean, how would you feel? You would feel absolutely suicidal in mentally, wouldn't you? I mean, many people literally just couldn't stay any longer and they threw the towel in. But then what happened? 1975, the market went up about 6 or 7%. 1976, it went up 145%. By 1977, you got your £10,000 back. And by the beginning of 1983, you'd got back your purchasing power because inflation was very, very high then. So here's the point about stock markets. They are extremely volatile, and they are a voting machine in the short term, just reflecting fear and greed and sentiment and liquidity and people's need for money and people's need to invest. And in the long run, they're a weighing machine, because here's the thing. That money that you'd invested, that £10,000, would be worth today, even with stock market falls, well over £200,000. That is a lot with income reinvested. That is a big investment. Now, the reality is that we experience these things in real time, and we think the world is going to hell in a handcastle, and we're all going to go back to black and white telly, 3 TV channels, We're not going to be having deliveries anymore. No one's going to go on a holiday, and we're never going to buy any nice cars, and we're going to stop streaming videos, and we're just going to go back to a very simple existence. Is that going to happen? So what's your thoughts then when people say about stocks and shares? There's a framework, isn't there, that we can use?
First thing I do is I get out my decisive hand and I say, how much money have I got in the bank? Do I need the money that's invested? Do I have to have some more money? Am I going to run out? Is there any way I can get some money without having to cash in this investment while it's so low? Look, so many people buy high and sell low.
Yep.
The whole mentality around the stock market is to try and switch that around. And the fact that what we're trying to do is we're trying to buy low and sell high. When you see all those, what they call candles going up and down, all that is the number of buyers versus the number of sellers. It's got nothing to do with what the company's value is, etc. It's literally buying versus selling. And as the stock market goes down, it's people selling. So if you can afford, so whoever posted the question saying it's gone through the floor, I don't know what you're invested in. I'm not allowed to give you financial advice. My investments have gone down too. I'm looking at mine possibly the same way as that you're looking at yours.
We feel your pain, right?
I feel your pain.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My own personal opinions at the moment, I'm saying to myself, do I need the money that I invested? My answer is no, I don't. If I did, I would possibly have to think about cashing in some of it if there was no other way that I could get money that was any cheaper. But my ideal is to leave it there, to wait for it to come back up. It's not if it comes back up, it's to wait for it to come back up. But again, it really does. I think yours is in a stocks and shares ISA. It depends what you've got it in. If all of your shares are in a company like Uber, which is a relatively new company, the question that I always ask myself when I'm investing is, say, can that company go to zero? Probably the answer could be yes. But if my investment is in something like a fund where there are lots of stocks all under an umbrella of one fund, is it likely that all of those are going to go to zero? I'd say no. We've had
unless it's the end of the world, we've got other problems, right?
No, exactly. And if it's invested in an index, is it going to go to zero? It's not. So I would hang on if you can, but you need to decide what your if you can looks like.
Yeah. So here's the thing. You have to be patient. Warren Buffett said that the stock market is designed to transfer value from the inpatient and active to the patient and the people who take long-term food. Most money dashboard users, I would think your time horizon, and the biggest goal you have is getting enough money to be financially independent when paid work is optional. You work because you want to, not because you have to. So I'm 50 years of age, right? 51 next month. My time horizon is 49 years minimum because I'm going to go to 100, right? That's what I'm aiming for. Fit and well. So for most money dashboard users, your time horizon is 70, 80 years probably. So your time horizon in the scheme of things, this is frightening. Firstly, I would suggest if it doesn't affect your short-term situation, keep going with regular payments, regular investments, because you're buying more units every month. And when the market picks up, you'll benefit from that. If you're nearer to needing to draw on money, then you have to be a bit more sanguine. If you do need to cash in a stocks and shares ISA or any stock market investment because you've got no other option, only cash in what you absolutely need, not the whole lot. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, okay?
Just very quickly, I mean, I was talking to a client the other day who was coming to me and he said he wanted to start a pension. He wanted to self-invest through on one of the online platforms. And he was cashing in some of his savings to put in his pension. Now, that was last week. We have a conversation this week and he's now been laid off from his work and he's not actually going to get any help. So the last thing he's going to do now is start investing in a pension because he needs to keep that liquid cash available to him to keep going over the next couple of weeks. And we'll revisit it again. He's 24. He's got plenty of time. So,
right.
Yeah.
So we've got a couple of questions here about can I do a part-time job if I'm furloughed and my employer's paying the 80%? So look, my understanding is there's nothing wrong with you doing some additional work, okay? Because as long as your overall employment situation, you're not doing anything to infringe your employment terms and what your availability for your employer, et cetera, then it's no different from, say, me doing coaching in the evening, or something like that. It's when you're doing a job that would be in parallel to the job you would have done and taking up that time, you might be on flaky ground. But again, I'm not absolutely 100% sure of that. Is the self-employed grant taxable? My understanding is it will be taxable, just as any profits would be. That's my understanding. But again, the technical notes only came out yesterday, and we would need to look at that. So we'd want to touch base and just touch up on that question again. But my understanding is it will be. Have you got another one there you want to take, Fanny?
I'm just trying to find one. Is it silly to start putting savings into an investment fund right now? Absolutely not. But it's measuring how much liquid cash you have. If you've got 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months living expenses set aside in liquid cash, and you've got some money left over after that, best time to buy ever. Absolutely brilliant time to start investing. But keep liquid cash available to you so that you can keep going, and you're not going to suddenly go, oh no, why did I put that money in? Why did I put that money in savings?
The thing is, I if anyone's ever watched or followed any of my stuff, I go on about 10-year plus time horizon is the absolute minimum. So that's the same. If you're investing in a LISA, say you're going to be buying a house, I've pulled up people, so-called financial commentators, time after time. You cannot put that money in a LISA in stocks and shares if you're thinking it's going to be a deposit for a house in 2 or 3 years' time. Yes, there's a chance the market could go up, but there's a chance the market could keep tanking, keep going down. So that's why you put it in cash, not because it's the best return, but because you need to preserve that capital. Now, we've got some questions here about buying houses, Fanny. Do you want to handle that, or do you want me to?
I can't see it. Where is it? What did it say about whether you should buy a house?
Yeah, basically they haven't exchanged. They've agreed a deal. Should they go back and ask for money off?
God, that's a really interesting one. Should they go back and ask for money off? I mean, if I was to think about me, I wouldn't do that. But it's what I don't know the situation. I don't know if I can answer that really.
Okay, well, I'm happy to answer it.
Yeah, you go.
Here's the thing: if you do not need to move, and if you've got other options for housing, then my view is this: a house is worth what the purchaser will pay, not what the seller needs.
Exactly.
Is asking. The bank says is worth, the valuer puts on it, or what the estate agent tells you. It is only worth what someone is prepared to pay. I bought a car last year, and he had it up for £25,000. I've got a blog on this on my website, so £24,500. And he had it up for 25. I said, look, I'll give you 19,000. That's what I've got. He said, no, I've had a trader offer me that. I said, okay, well, I'm in the right ballpark then. And he said, no, I need more than that. I said, okay, if you've still got the car in a month's time, I'll come back and we'll have a chat. He still had the car in a month's time. So suddenly he's got to decide, is he motivated to sell? Okay. I've got options. I don't have to buy the car. I wasn't in any tearing hurry. I had the cash, he had the car. In the meantime, the reason why he didn't want to sell, and this is why you need to know as much information about the seller, how motivated are they? He had monthly payments going out on car finance on that car. He bought it brand new for £42,000. So not did he just pay the brand new price, he also paying this finance. And he had his new car coming. So I eventually spoke to him, and I ended up paying him just over £20,000 for that car, okay? Because the reality was no one else was knocking on his door. I was the only guy in town. And I got the car for $4,500. I got paid a bit more than I wanted to, but I got the car that I wanted. No payments, no finance, done. Went to his house, paid for it. So when it comes to buying a house, it is really, it's a real shame for the people selling, but you didn't cause coronavirus. You are the one that's taking on the risk of that property. And as soon as you buy it, you've got maintenance costs. You don't know what's going to happen to mortgage rates. You don't know what's going to happen to future values. You've got to protect your best interests. So I would say to someone, either look, I would pause this purchase and say, I'm not prepared to proceed at the moment. And the government is telling you online, they're saying pause. Because what removal company is going to go in and start moving gear from one house to another? They're going to have to be suited up like they're doing asbestos removal, right? So my view is pause. But equally, if you're really keen on the place, and there's a young lady I know who asked my advice on this, and she really loves the property. I said, okay, well, that's the problem. You're emotionally invested. If you really love that property and it's really going to be difficult to find it, it's not unreasonable for you to go back and ask for some money off. So she's paying £375,000 and putting a £20,000 deposit down. I said, why don't you go and ask for £75,000 off? All they can do is say no.
Yeah, I mean, you can ask the question.
Let me just finish. So once you've said, I'm happy to pay 300, That may still be too much relative to where prices may go if they drop 25%. But here's the thing. You won't have paid the maximum price that it currently is. So here's the point. The world has changed. If they really need to sell, if they're really motivated and need the money, they'll have to take whatever is available. And what you'll end up with is less debt and more equity. Because 20,000 as a percentage of 300,000 is much better than 20,000 as a percentage of 375. So I'm saying do this in an open and honest and a pleasant way. It's not your fault. This is just how it is. Now, what are they going to do? They're either going to say no. They're either going to say no. Let's pause it. No, I'm not taking the price. And then what are they going to do? If they say no and you walk away, who's going to come and look at their house for the next 9 months? Because I think this is going to go on for probably 6 to 9 months, this drama. We'll have it'll probably ease down. We'll all think we're getting back to normal, and then there'll be a flare-up again. So there'll be a double dip, I think. But we will come out of it in a year's time.
We will.
And so I'm just saying, use this perhaps to your advantage. And if you are thinking about buying self-build, they have a 30+% profit margin. So I would be offering at least 25% below the current price. At least, even if you put a deposit down, as long as you're not contractual, at least 25% discount, minimum.
Some good deals out there.
Yeah.
Somebody asked on here, is there a good app for budgeting?
Oh, let me think now. Can we think of someone? Let me think.
I know an app. I tell you, there's an app that's a really, really good favourite of mine. I'll tell you about it. It's really good because you can set individual budgets. You can put all your accounts in one place and see all the transactions going through together. It tags it all for you. And it's called
Money Dashboard. Who are our hosts, so thank you. And because we are both disciples, we are both, we're drinking the same Kool-Aid. Not that, as I say, it's personal preference. I mean, there are apps with banks, etc. But Money Dashboard have been doing this for a long time, okay?
Can I say something about Money Dashboard? Sorry, right now. So my speciality is coaching couples. And I know that there can be a lot of friction between couples right now in the situation that we're in when it comes to money. One of the beauties of Money Dashboard is that you can put all of your, you can put all your accounts in there, is share the login. So if when you're talking to each other about money, it seems like trying to defuse the atomic bomb, Money Dashboard is actually brilliant as a way of you both getting transparency privately, quietly, so that you can prepare for a conversation. It is absolutely brilliant for all the couples that I've coached.
It's a catalyst, that's right. Got another one here. This is a good one. I'm 3 years from early retirement. Should I take 25% tax-free lump sum and pop it in premium bonds? Well, what we don't know is whether that is a money purchase scheme, one that goes up and down in value, or whether that is a final salary pension that you've got to commute or whatever. I'm suspecting it's a money purchase scheme. Is that right, Fanny, do you think?
Well, or is it taking 25% of a portfolio that's just lost an awful lot of value? And in which case, do you want to take 25% of it now?
Well, he says tax-free lump sum. Let's assume it's a pension.
So
let's assume it's a pension.
And if that's invested in stocks and shares or funds, or etc., that might have just taken a complete dive. So 25% of a lesser value.
Well, let's put it this way. Let's forget the tax-free lump sum. Let's assume that you're 3 years away from retirement, so you don't need the income. What you're really saying is, should I crystallise the fact that my portfolio is down now? Shall I crystallise a quarter of the portfolio's loss or falling value? Because it's probably well ahead of what you put into it over the years. That's what he's saying. He's saying, shall I take 25% of the money out of my pension and put it into it and crystallise the definite fall down in value and put it in premium bonds because I'm going to be retiring 3 years? Well, I would say this. No one knows. We could have stock markets continue to fall. I would personally, if you're wanting to get ready for taking money out and you're going to buy an annuity, or you're going to need that lump sum, perhaps start doing it gradually, probably after, over the coming, do it monthly, perhaps over the coming 2-3 years. So chop up that 25% into 36 and take little bits over the next thing. Now, if in reality you're going to draw income from your pension pot, then you probably don't want to disinvest. You may not want to. So it really depends what you're going to use that 25% for. And here's the other thing. If you take money out of a pension, it's in your estate for inheritance tax, whereas in a pension under the age of 75, there's no tax charges currently, as the rules currently state. So I think it really depends on what you're going to use the money for and how much money it's fallen in value. Guys, here got another one here is, where is a good place to find up-to-date information? Well, there's three good websites. The Money and Pensions Money Advice Service has a Corona checklist, absolutely superb, well looking at. Which Money has a brilliant checklist of money-related stuff. And there's
government.
no, what that is that they don't have
the government website.
No, I wouldn't go to the government websites. No, it's just too turgid. So Money Advice website has got a great Corona Money checklist and Which. They're the two that I would recommend you go to because they're easiest to understand. Okay. Okay, this one here, I've got 5 different pension schemes from my previous employment. Is it possible to combine? Yes, it is. Just one caveat there. That's Frederick. Be very careful. If you are in ill health at the moment and you transfer pensions, you could potentially remove the inheritance tax shield that's around those pensions, because if you die within 2 years of making a pension transfer, you potentially have you've made those assets in your estate for inheritance tax. So if you're in good health at the time you're doing it, even if you did die in a car accident or whatever, something you didn't know about, as long as you're in good health when you're doing the transfers, you should be fine. And you probably will save money, but do take advice on the investment strategy. And it may be that your workplace employer scheme has got a good scheme there. What's the other one here now? There's quite a few. Keep them coming.
Yeah. Is it silly to start putting savings into an investment fund right now? Oh, we've done that one. Would you advise swapping funds in your pension now? Again, I suppose just to make sure that your portfolio is balanced. I would say just trying to keep it balanced. And
well, here's the thing. I think if you're under 30, Nest, which is the default sort of auto enrollment pension, they put young people into a very cautious investment strategy because they're worried about having a bad experience, and then they gradually increase it. Personally, if you can get your head around it, if I was under 35, I'd be putting at least 70%, if not 80% more into equities, because none of us have got so much money that we can overfund our pensions. Because the money that you invest now when you're young has a massive difference to the end value. If you're older, then you might want to start redirecting, even if you don't change what you've got, what's in the pot, you might want to start redirecting future contributions into different funds. And here's the thing, it's not just about the asset allocation. You might take the view, as I do, that sustainable investing is possibly the way forward. So in my salary finance workplace pension, and I haven't got a huge amount of headroom left, but I started redirecting the regular contributions into sustainable index funds last year. So I didn't change the existing funds I've got, which are standard index tracking funds, but I started to redirect future contributions. So that's another way that you can change your asset allocation without sort of changing what you've got. But the key thing is that if you're young, you need equities to do heavy lifting for you.
Yeah,
okay?
Absolutely.
And as you get older, you probably want to start reducing the volatility, but not completely going into cash, because you're going to need that money to support you beyond it. There isn't a fixed point for retirement anymore. There's just a point when you go from owning and saving to gradually starting to draw back the money that you're earning. And for most of us, we're probably going to be doing a gradual move from work to non-work, where we'll have some assets working for us and some income.
Here's an interesting one. I had to relocate for work and my flat's been on the market unsold since October. Is it better to try renting it out? I mean, again, it's like if you're paying a mortgage on it and it's been sitting there empty and it's not selling, maybe it would be a good idea to take to rent it out now, to actually at least get the mortgage paid, etc. I mean, if it hasn't sold since last October, that's quite a long time now, isn't it, Jason? What do you think?
It is a long time. I mean, well, what are the options? Let's think about what the options.
Yeah, what are the options? So you can rent it out and get the mortgage covered and hopefully get some profit.
Yep.
You can keep it on the market and try and look at the price and see if it is priced correctly.
Yep. You could get it dressed, couldn't you? You could get it staged.
Get it dressed, get it looking better. How far can you be flexible with the price? I mean, when do you go into negative equity? How close are you to that? Working that out. Are you on with the right estate agent?
Could you make use of if you've got a mortgage? Could you make use of the mortgage holiday period? Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
So again, everything comes down to there's no definitive answer. You have to make a decision based on the circumstances that you're in. It's
Jens makes the points that no one's viewing, no one's doing anything. Okay, so therefore, if there is no, and this won't go on forever though, Jens. I mean, we're talking about this is not going to happen forever. But if no one's doing any viewings, then you're going to have to go to your mortgage lender and ask them for a 3-month sabbatical. Okay, because at least that will stop things getting worse and it will catch the breath. And it may be in 3 months' time, viewings do start again, before the selling market does pick up. The other option is you could sell to one of these "we will buy your house" at WeBuyAnyHouse.com sort of. I'm not sure there's several on the market, but you will take a big haircut.
Yeah, I mean, she says that she's a landlord herself, and she's stopped the viewings. And we all know that when a property's been sitting on the market for months and months and months and months and months, there's that tendency to go, well, hang on a minute, what's wrong with it? Why hasn't anybody bought it? And sometimes just having a break from the market before putting it back again can be the healthiest thing that you can do.
Yeah. Okay, we've got another one here. I'm keen. Our bank's keen to accept mortgage applications. I was planning to buy my first property this year via either shared ownership, shared equity. Should I hold on or? Well, first and foremost, I'm not sure it is the right time to be buying. Right?
No.
Unless you can get a good deal. So yes, it's a great time to buy if you can get a good deal. The banks apparently are still lending, but they apparently lots of them have removed all their 10 and 15% or 20% mortgages, and really the mortgage market is contracted to sort of 60%. Now that tells me that the banks aren't stupid. If they're only prepared to lend 60 or even 70% loan to value on new deals now, that's telling you something. They do not want to be left holding the baby. Now, the Help to Buy loan from the government means the government's on the hook for any losses. So if you do want to buy Help to Buy, negotiate the price right down, because it's got to be a new build. But the government's on the hook for that 20%. So that will probably still be around. I'm not sure what the answer is there. Doing that across... what's this other one? What self-employed person on over 50 do as they fall outside the grant? Well, look, there's no magic here. There's no silver bullet. If you earn over 50,000, the government's view is you should have been saving. Okay, so the only option that you can really do is you either got to sell stuff, turn it into cash, find more work, or pivot. Is there something different you can do that you can deliver virtually, or that you can do in a social distancing way? So if you're a plumber, could you be doing, I don't know, delivery driving? It's not ideal. It's not the same money, but there's loads. There are something like 290,000 jobs that have been created in the last 10 days that employers are looking for. It's not ideal, but people to pick fruit and vegetables. It's not great money, but at least it's something.
Exactly.
So I'm sorry about that, but they had to. I think they were right. They should have done the 50,000 thing, but I also think they should have put 50,000 as the limit for the employed jobs as well, because most people are the median earnings in the UK are £27,500.
27.5. Yeah.
50,000 limit there, or make it 60,000 for self-employed and employed, and that would have covered most people. I'm sorry, that's no great answer to you. All I would say is you may qualify. The self-employed guy over 50,000, you may qualify for enhanced universal credit. So universal credit, it may be payable for the first time for you because of your lower income, or if you did qualify for it before, you may qualify for a higher amount. And the only benefit, don't forget, is if you were earning over 50,000, you would have had, and if you've got children, you would have been paying the child benefit tax surcharge between 50 to 60,000. You would have lost all your child benefit if you earn over 60,000. So you'll get that money back by virtue of the fact that you won't be earning 50,000. And the other thing is you might want to consider if you have an incorporated business, then you can apply for the business interruption loan that's from the government. Now that's available for up to £5 million for businesses that are, I think it's under £5 million turnover, I think, from memory. I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember the number. But basically,
I can't remember.
The bank will lend you money. Don't take any personal guarantees. They can't charge you interest or require loan repayments for the first year. So I would suggest every business should be trying to apply for a loan for at least 12 months, because you don't pay anything back and you don't pay any interest. And just think of the things you can invest in your business, even if you don't need it for personal needs. So that's worth looking at. What have we got here? I'm just offered a new job with a bit more money in a smaller company I'm currently in. I'm unsure if I should change the job in this new situation. Well, that's AJ. What's your Fanny?
Oh, again, I mean, it's if you've been offered a job with a bit more money, if you feel that it's going to be secure, I would look at actually both of the companies and look at maybe their balance sheets and see which one is most secure. If they're both in the same industry, then it's going to be much of a muchness. But if you're moving from a company that's obviously going to have a safe next 12 months with what they do to something that's not going to be so secure, just go through all the options again and consider it. How far do you have to travel? Is it going to be easy to get there? Can you work from home? Can you, all of those things that's going to, what does your heart tell you to do as well? That sounds silly, but go with your intuition.
Well, I would say this. I would say the size of a company doesn't determine whether it's going to stay in business. Okay,
No.
it just means that if it's got less resources, it might go out of business quicker. What determines a business's viability is it serving customers well? Is it resilient? Can it adapt? Smaller companies actually can adapt quicker than big companies. And don't forget, those big companies will benefit from the 80% scheme. So if they find that the real tough times continue, they could continue to pay you for a period of time. And I'm sure that furloughing idea will continue if necessary. And I would say that if you believe the prospects of this business are better than the business you've come from, you think it's more resilient, it's got more growth orientation, and you can add more value, and you think they can be more nimble, then the fact you're earning a bit more money, that should be the thing that determines it, not the fact it's more money. So if your existing business is paying you a bit less, but you think that there's more of a future there, and all you did was you took the extra money for the new company, but it's not better as a company, I'd stay where I am.
Yes, looking at the future.
There's another one here I want to answer. Are directors able to take furlough and benefits from the 80% government help? The answer is yes, because but most directors do not pay themselves high salaries. So dividends do not count and benefits of kind don't count. It's only PAYE salary. So my wife gets a salary through one of my companies, and I haven't had to make her redundant because she doesn't really do a great deal. She does what she gets paid for, which is not huge amounts. So even if I did apply for it and I did want to make her redundant or put her on the sidelines, it wouldn't be a huge amount of money because she doesn't get paid a lot. So the answer is it doesn't matter about being a director. All it matters is that you can qualify for the corporate structure and that the person's job would otherwise have been put on the sidelines. And it is a genuine situation. I mean, there are lots of people who employ family relatives who can't pay them the salary now, and therefore they do have to sit on the sidelines, and you can claim the money. On business interruption loan, my understanding is that you only get interest free if the bank won't lend on their normal terms. No, that's not the case. The bank's terms, they cannot charge you interest or they charge you repayments for the first 12 months. They are the terms. They can only charge you their normal interest for terms beyond 12 months. That's my understanding. If you've seen technical note that clarifies that alternatively, let me know. They might try it on. They might try and offer you a non-business interruption loan. So HSBC is really great. If you go online, they've got great. You can apply for all sorts of loans, but it's not the coronavirus loan. It's just their normal bog standard, let's charge you 10% loan. So you need to make sure it is the coronavirus business interruption loan, and you've got to have a good case for it. You've got to have a viable business. I mean, if you were going out of business before this isn't going to solve your problems, but you are entitled to it, and they cannot charge you interest or repayments for the first 12 months. If you've got other information to the contrary, please post it in the forum. But this is a fast-moving situation, okay?
It is a fast-moving. You're like a walking encyclopedia, Jason. Honestly,
really?
All this knowledge you've got, I'm sitting here thinking, this is great. He knows all the answers. 2 more minutes
left. If there's no more questions, we now need to wrap up, Fanny. Yeah. So what do you want to just say to people as we and please do keep posting the questions. We will get to answer them after the event. We're just now going to sum up. So over to you.
With the questions that have come up, it's very difficult for us to gauge what your mindset is doing. From my perspective as a money coach, mindset is everything. The practical finance is a very small piece of it after that. And I know that all of you are keen to be good with your money because you're Money Dashboard members, which is great. But if you're feeling anxious or fearful, or you're not sure what's going to happen in the next period, is try to find that peace of calm and think about how you can make a plan sensibly to move forward rather than going into panic. And actually, I think that if you can really work out what your relationship is to your money right now, that's going to set you in very, very good stead as to how you then manage it practically. You must have a budget. Everybody must have a budget. And I think that the fantastic part of one of these things, we're saying that this coronavirus is like pressing a reset button on the planet. And one of those things is going to be financially. Yeah. Got to look at the opportunity of this. We must have a budget. We must start trying to save a buffer. I realize now that that's possibly insensitive to say that now with people who are having their income cut short, but we're going to learn new methods and try to use this as an opportunity to move forward. For people that really are stressed, I'm always happy to offer a 30-minute one-to-one phone call. And also I'm going to talk about the money type quiz that I've got on my website, which will help you to understand, maybe to clarify how you feel if you really are feeling confused when it comes to money right now.
Okay, well, I would say there's loads of questions still coming in here, and we will get to answer those, but we haven't got any more time. I would just like to say this in summing up. Yes, you've got to get super tactical in terms of doing stuff and doing what's in front of you, but you've also got to come right out and think strategically. You've got to look at what's currently happening and the decisions that you make in the context of your overall lifetime, okay? Because what you do or don't do now will have a ripple effect to a greater or lesser extent on the rest of your life, okay? So when people are saying, should I invest in this? Should I do that? Is it a good time to do this? Look, here, don't get sort of too sucked into the weeds of being super tactical because you want to do stuff, right? Sometimes doing nothing is as important as doing stuff, right?
Yep.
So in other words, not touching things or not suddenly rushing in and then seeing you need the money next year and the stock markets continue to fall. So think strategically, and then the tactical things.
And consciously.
And the tactical things need to be thought through.
Yeah.
So take Fanny up on her offer there. I do a Real Money Stories podcast every week, 30 minutes, where I talk to someone about their own stories. You can listen to those, and they tell you what they've learned. We all do write blogs between.
I was on there, wasn't I?
Yes, you were on there. Very good.
Fun, yeah.
And I tell you what, here's the thing. Doesn't matter what has happened in the past. You are where you are. Yep. Take the next best step forward, but think strategically. It's been great talking to you, and I think we now need to invite Ben back in, Ben, to do the final watch.
Sean, yeah. Sean.
Sorry,
Hello,
Sean. Sean. Sorry.
Sorry, Sean.
That's right, don't worry.
I always thought you looked like a Ben.
I can be Ben if you want, that's fine. Yeah, so I won't repeat anything that you guys have just said, but just very quickly, a couple of quick thanks. So yeah, firstly to Jason and Fanny, thank you so much for spending the time talking through. I think you covered a lot of ground there. And it was hugely helpful for me and hopefully for a lot of others too. And then thanks also to everyone else for tuning in, for all your questions and just general participation. It's great validation. I know a number of the team behind the Money Dashboard app are tuned into this, and it's great for them to be able to see the amount of enthusiasm that people are kind of taking on about their personal finances at the moment. So let's please continue the conversation. You can head over to community.moneydashboard.com and just let us know if that was helpful, and if you have any other questions, we'll try and answer them over there. But that's all we've got time for now. So yeah, have a great weekend, everyone, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks for coming. We're going to get through this.
Find me on my website. Stay positive.
Bye.
Make a plan.